Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 edition of the Developers Showcase. I'm Tom Robb, and I'm your MC for this session. Pardon our slightly delayed start. We expected to start at 1:45 Eastern Daylight Time, and now it's about 1:51. We have some cancellations, but we're going to stay in the same order that you can see on your PDF, if you have it, or the program. And so Paul Richards is going to be the first presenter. Now, since we have had some cancellations, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 presentations only. So that means that each presenter will speak for approximately 12 minutes with 3 minutes for changeover of the next presenter. So when it's changing over, the previous presenter can answer questions, but please disconnect your computer so that the next person can hook up, okay? So with that brief introduction, I'd like to introduce Paul Richards, who will be speaking about pragmatic feedback through an academic advising simulation. Please, Paul. And you have to use the microphone.
All right, thank you very much for coming out today. I'm excited to go ahead and get started. So I'm a PhD candidate at Indiana University, and I study second language studies and linguistics. So here, this is my dissertation work, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with this right now. So a little bit of background before I get into the actual simulation. So I'm following research from Julie Sykes, who really pioneered the use of simulations for pragmatics instructions. This started with her dissertation in 2008, and it was published in 2009-2013 with Croquetlandia. The idea is you interact with various avatars through text-based, kind of a choose-your-own-adventure type program here, right? So let me move forward. Yes, so I'm going to go here again. So here in the future research, Holden and Sykes, they moved to a mobile place-based game, and this was a similar type of interaction. And it was, rather than a 3D environment, it's just a mobile version of this. So to quickly go through this, I'm going to skip again. And then the most recent research that has been published on the use of simulations for pragmatics instruction was Taguchi, Lee, and Tang 2017. And this focused on conventional expressions. So one thing that I'm really working on is the experimentalization of features within a simulation. So you can see here, this is some feature analysis of the components that have been in previous simulation-related research. So Sykes has input, all of them have input, meta-pragmatic instruction, classroom instruction, peer feedback, implicit feedback, right? So there's a large mix of research or interactional features included in each of these designs. And then Taguchi 2017 has called for more experimental research so that we can understand the causality of what leads to learning in these simulations, right? So that's really what I'm aiming to do here by focusing on specifically explicit input. So my design has a control group and then groups that receive different types of explicit input. So now I'll go ahead and start the simulation. Okay, so here I have just the start of the program. This program was made in Python, specifically using Tkinter, which is a GUI programming packet for Python. So here, participants in the study, they will put in their participant code, and this will determine which type of feedback they get. Participants are not aware of the type of feedback that they get. So I'll put in a participant code and get started. Okay, so participants play through the simulation 3 times, And so I should say this was done by observing academic advising sessions at my institution, and then interviewing academic advisors to what the courses that participants take. So these are actual courses at Indiana University, and participants choose the schedule that they want to take. On the next screen, then participants choose the courses that they will take for the following semester. Okay, so here we have just a picture of an academic advisor. The language on the left is from the corpus of academic advising sessions that I've collected. So this is actual language from an academic advisor. All right, come on in, take a seat, how you been? Okay, and then on the right we have responses that are actual from non-native speakers of English. So participants try to get the schedule that they have self-identified, and this is shown to them at the bottom of the screen. So I will play through this, and you can see the feedback that is given. So I will say that the language is all from the corpus that I have collected. So these are actual responses that participants have said. There is a slight time delay, and this was chosen from piloting just to prevent participants from accidentally going to the next screen. Okay, so here we come up to a target item. So one thing that I'm really looking at here is refusals in academic advising sessions. And I found that native speakers would generally use these bi-clausal request forms. Would it be possible for me to do this, or I was wondering if I could do this? Whereas the non-native speakers would say, no, I hate writing. So these were very direct responses. Here I have a bi-clausal request form. This was actually from the corpus of native speakers. Then I have I feel that's bad, I'm not good at math, which was from a non-native speaker. Okay. Then at the bottom I have I think it's good, which is an acceptance, right? So the way this is set up, the participant can only get the schedule that they want if they refuse. So in that initial section of the simulation, participants chose the courses they want to take. The advisor here will always recommend a course that is not the one that they want to take. So they have to refuse. So success in this simulation is determined whether or not they get their schedule, not whether or not they're polite. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll choose a rude response so you can see the feedback. So it's very quick. I think that was rude. It was presented in the form of a thought bubble, and the reason for this is because academic advisors do not give responses to non-native speakers. So I didn't want to artificially enhance the responses. I didn't want them to be scolded. I wanted to give them something that might help them map the pragmatic appropriateness or the politeness to the utterance in a way that is somewhat realistic. So then here the participant has the option to choose another class. Okay. And then the participant will go through this and choose the remaining points of the schedule. And then at the end they'll be informed whether or not they have successfully chosen the schedule that they have identified that they want to take. So that is the main feedback component, and I'll come back for a moment to the PowerPoint. So these are actual expressions from participants when they were doing this. So these were the patterns of refusals from non-native speakers. I hate writing. I would die for chemistry, which actually sounds like I really want to take a chemistry class. So not even really a refusal, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm not at all interested in math. No, I don't like economics. Not a good choice to me. Gosh, no, I'm done with math. So these very direct responses that were not observed by native speakers. So looking at the pre-test and post-test that I've used, this is the written DCT. They also have an oral DCT. This is a discourse completion task. So for the written one, they actually write down the responses. The oral DCT, they speak, and it's recorded on the computer. We can see a change. They've shown uptake along the dimension of semantic formula. So no, I do not like economics, very direct. No, I don't like that too. Is there some other choice? Right. I don't see uptake of the bi-clausal request form, but I do see movement towards the native speaker norm of asking for a replacement or another option instead of the just, no, I will not do that. Okay. And I think that's about all for my time. I will say one other thing. So one other thing that I'm interested in doing is looking at other ways that we can give feedback in a way that is realistic. So I don't want the advisor to scold a participant for not using a form that a native speaker would use. So another idea is having some other characters come in and give feedback, right? Some sort of guide. You could kind of think of this like as Clippy or something from Microsoft Word that's like, oh, did you make a mistake? So here's my Pragmatic's penguin. So I'll be experimenting with this for giving more explicit types of feedback in the simulation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. We now have some time for questions from the audience. And Paul, if there is a question, could you please repeat it? Because, you know, the audience can't hear. If we could what? Yes. Could the people in the back please come towards the front? If you have to sneak out halfway, that's fine. But we would really like to have people closer. Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions for Paul? So, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So, how long has it taken you since you conceived this idea to your current point in the project?
So that's an excellent question. It's been about a year. I think I'd like to address quickly, though, the kind of, I think the idea behind it is how practical is a solution like this? Can we make something like this for every environment? So I think that one thing that I'm interested in looking at is just largely making corpora playable. So dialogic corpora that can be tagged in a way that users can take on a role and make choices from options that are actually in the corpus. Also, the original project didn't start off as intended to be a simulation. It started off with just an observation of language used in academic advising sessions. The programming itself was quite simple. So I mean, a couple months, I think, to implement the program itself.
So did you know Python before you started this, or did you teach yourself? What's your programming background?
Yes, so I'm a student in computational linguistics at Indiana University. So I had courses in programming, but yeah, I don't think you need a lot of programming. Teachers can do this with fairly basic programming courses in Python or Java. Yeah, and the whole reason I started studying computational linguistics is so I could do this.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Paul. An excellent presentation. We'll move on now to Christine Wingate's presentation, and you are almost ready. And Christine is speaking about promoting independent pronunciation practice with American English sounds. Thank you. Please present, and you have 12 minutes.
Great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Christine Wingate, and I'm an ESL lecturer at the University of Iowa. And I have been teaching a range of classes in both the IIEP and the ITA program. Several years ago, I was teaching a speaking class for graduate students wanting to be TAs, and the name of the class was Pronunciation, Fluency, and Culture Building. And as you can tell from the name, there was a lot to cover in that class. So I had this ongoing challenge for the 2 years I taught the class that I would have some students with pronunciation difficulties that were really impacting their speech, but I would have other students who didn't need a lot of pronunciation work. And that led to the question, how do I make sure all my students are getting what they need? I found that I did not have as much time in class to cover individual sounds of English that some of my students were needing. And I was looking at the resources that are out there for pronunciation, and there are some good apps and websites that have been, and there have been a lot of reviews about what's out there for computer-assisted pronunciation teaching and what is still lacking. And I was not finding what I wanted that would give my students the depth and breadth of practice that they needed. So I decided to try to create what I wanted my students to have, and this is how American English Sounds was born. So American English Sounds is a free website, open source, anyone can access it, and it provides tutorials for every sound of the English language. And these were just some of the guiding principles for how I designed the site. I tried to incorporate many principles from researchers in computer-assisted pronunciation teaching. The website provides substantial input for students. It provides both listening and production practice. It gives both easy and difficult tasks, and it connects the sounds with meaning. So I'll go to the website. Give me 1 second. All right, this is what you see when you go to the home page. And you'll see there are menus for vowels and consonants. I'll show you the consonants menu. So the menus are organized by the type of sound, and then each one has a sub menu. And you'll see I used a modified set of phonetic symbols, but I also gave sample words for each sound so that it's very easy to find the sound that you need. There's also a consonant chart and vowel chart that shows all the sounds together, and these have links built into them as well. So I'm going to show you just a few sample pages, starting with the one for theta, the th sound, because this one's always a little fun for my students. All right, so each page follows about the same format. It starts with a listening activity where students can hear the sound and hear some sample words. Then there is a brief explanation of the sound. It starts with some technical vocabulary that's often taught in pronunciation classes, but then it gives a more general language description as well. For the consonants, I also included charts of consonant clusters. Then there's a spelling rule and a grammar tip. So for theta, the spelling rule is pretty easy, but for other sounds, it's a little difficult because it's English, right? The grammar tip connects the sound with some grammatical structure to show the students why the sound might impact their grammar. So for theta, the th sound, we have this at the end of words like width, strength, length. as a word ending. And even more commonly, we have it at the end of our cardinal numbers, like 5th, 6th, 7th. So it becomes very important for those words. Then the compare section presents the students with sound contrasts to show how this sound is different from a similar sound. So here we contrast th and the, voiced and voiceless. And then there's a little activity where students can hear, in this case, they'll hear 2 words and they'll identify which one has the th sound. For example, clothing or cloth, A or B, they would say B. The second one, th and s, they would only hear one of these words and they would have to say which word they hear. For example, if they hear thick, thick, they would have to say A. And so this is something they could easily do on their own just for a bit of listening practice. Then in the practice section, there is a word list that they can practice repeating, and they can go through this as many times as they need to. And it ranges from 1-syllable words to multi-syllable words. It also tries to present each sound in a few different positions: the beginning of a word, the middle of a word, and the end of a word. And then the sentences, I have 6 sentences, and each sentence has about 2 to 4 instances of the target sound. So students can start by pronouncing those words in isolation and then try putting them in a sentence so that they can practice linking that sound with other sounds and other words. The last part of each page is a speaking activity. And this is a little speaking prompt that they can respond to in a recording. So usually, if I ask a student to go through one of these tutorials, I will ask them to submit a recording for me. And usually this is the part I want to see, because this is where they will practice putting that sound in context. For example, for this activity, they have to talk about which of these are healthy behaviors, which ones are most important for your health. And so they really get the th sound in there, and they have to practice that in the flow of speech. So that's an example of a constant page. The page for a vowel is pretty similar, but in addition, we have, I included the stressed and unstressed vowel. So they can hear oo as a stressed vowel and an unstressed vowel. The only unstressed vowels that are separate would be schwa and schwa-r, since those are very common. And then the last part is a resource section with a list of other useful websites, as well as my own suggestions for students. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and I can share how I've been using this. Okay, so for my students, I often do a diagnostic at the beginning of a class and tell them, these are sounds you need to work on. So that allows me to give them some individual targets for practice. And then I will tell them, go work through some of these tutorials. And I might tell them, you have to do 3 in a semester, or however many seems fitting, but then they can choose, or they can go on my individualized feedback to choose which ones they need to work on. That way I don't have to spend time in class going over those sounds with them. I can just get a recording from them and give them some feedback. And the feedback does not take very long. And the way the practice section is structured, then it allows me to really refine my feedback. For example, I can tell them you pronounced a sound well at the beginning of a word, but not at the end of a word. And that allows them to narrow what they need to practice. So that's been very helpful so far, and my students seem to have appreciated it. So I hope this will be a very useful tool. I hope to continue developing it. And if you'd like to keep apprised of updates, I do have a Facebook and Twitter page set up for the site. I think I've used my time, so I think I can take questions at this point. Yes. That is an excellent question. She asked, what about differences in accents around the United States? And I think that is an ongoing question in pronunciation teaching. I have tried to account for variation where I could. For example, I do have separate pages for ah and ah, even though that's not part of my dialect. I don't make a difference between cot and clot. I think there's more that could be said and more research that needs to be done to account for those differences. For now, I've followed the standard set of sounds that's usually covered in pronunciation textbooks. However, if you're teaching somewhere with a specific dialect or accent, I would love to hear from you of what you think would be helpful there. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Does the software work on mobile phones, and did your students use the software on their mobile phones?
It does, yes. You can access the website through a mobile phone. It's not a separate app yet, but the website is accessible. Other questions?
This is great initiative. I just want to ask if the website can compare the differences between how you pronounce in comparison to the native speaker's pronunciation.
There are audio files, yes. So if that's what you meant. Let me go back to that. So for example, if you click on the audio link there, they would hear my voice, and they could compare with my voice. I'm afraid it does not have multiple speakers at this point, but they would be able to hear a model and compare. However, I will say that for feedback, they would depend on the teacher at this point, or a native English-speaking friend to tell them, yes, you're getting it, or no, you're not. And that's why for the final activity, you'll see that instruction, share this with a teacher or a friend, because that is still their best source of feedback. Other questions? No, I may not see them.
Was there a question?
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Christine. An interesting presentation. I hope you have lots of students using it. Now, the next presentation is by yours truly with Gordon Bateson, who just arrived about 90 minutes ago and came straight here from the airport. You can see his orange suitcase there. I need to connect my computer first. Hold on a second.
Hello everybody. Today Tom and I are going to talk about two software systems to support extensive reading. And the two systems work on a similar way of checking whether the students have read a book. Having read the book, the students will take an online quiz, and if they achieve a high enough score on the quiz, the systems will assume that they've read the book satisfactorily. However, the two systems work quite differently in that one system runs on a Moodle site in the host institution, whereas the other system runs on an external Moodle site. And so today we're going to look at how those two systems were able to talk to each other and what advantages that has for you. Tom.
All right. Thank you, Gordon, for filling in the gaps there. Could you please forward things? This is the title of our presentation, Making Quizzes More Secure, making the Moodle Reader Plug-in, which Gordon developed and is maintaining, draw from the MReader database, which I created. And actually, we have a full presentation tomorrow. Whoops, back again. If you want to hear more about it. So this is a capsule summary, and the focus is slightly different. So first, what we need to do is describe what MReader is and Moodle Reader is. It's a program for students and for teachers to keep track of what their students are reading. Because for extensive reading, one of the largest issues for why extensive reading isn't implemented is it's too much of a hassle for the teachers to check what the students have read or not, especially if you have multiple classes and so forth. So this program gives them a quiz, and then this is actually the top page showing the words read. Every time they take a quiz, if they pass it, they get the words added to their own count, and there's a goal for it. And in addition to that, there's also a page with, go to the next one, the stamp collection. They get a stamp collection like this of the cover of every single quiz they've taken, which is motivating. So that's basically how it works. And you can see here at the bottom, there's, for every single book that it's read, there's also a listing like this of the book. Go ahead. And I can't even see the screen myself. Yeah. Oh, yes. Then there's a progress bar there. And that slowly increments. So it has these gamified approach to it. And then below that, you can actually divide your term into mini periods, and you can say they have to reach so much at every single one of them. And and this is when they're searching for a book, they put in a keyword from the title, and then they get a display of all the books, and then they can just click on one of the books there. You can see that those three that are in the red rectangle there, those are all the same book, but the cover keeps changing. Publishers don't like to keep the same cover on their books for too long, and so we have all the covers. We have 7,000 quizzes in this system. Go ahead. And then this is what the teacher's page looks like. The orange there is just blocking out the student's name for privacy. But we have it color-coded, which makes it easy for the students to, the teacher to see what is happening. The red means they haven't touched it in 5 weeks. It slowly gets pink and pinker and then redder. And then the right side, the green, is for students who have reached the interim goal on the left, and then the final term goal on the right. So you can keep track easily just by the colors of what where your students are standing. And this here shows the class report, and keep going. We don't have to explain this in complete difficulty. And then these are all the teacher's options. The teacher can change, say, the level of the student, or how many words they have to read, and other criteria. Go ahead. And then this is it's one more. Maybe you have to click again. There's a report at the bottom. Oh, I see. Yeah, go back, please. This here is something that's newly going to be implemented from April, and there are all sorts of badges that the students can earn for reaching specific goals. So the individual teacher then chooses which of these goals they want to implement for their program. But there's a whole variety of them, and hopefully these will lead to greater reading. Okay, Gordon?
Great, thank you, Tom. That's the overview of the system that Tom wrote, which runs on a site called MReader.org. And now I'm going to show you what the Moodle system looks like. A lot of similarities. For example, here on this page is the students page, and you can see a progress bar. Next one, please, Tom. And with the covers of the books and details of attempts taken so far, the progress bar there. And next one, please. Some forms there to search for a quiz, that the next quiz that the student would like to take, and they push the button. This is all much as mreader.org. behind the scenes, there are some scripts running on the server which handle these requests to start an attempt at a quiz, to view an attempt at a quiz, and then the quiz pops up like this with a few simple questions. And there's another script to process each of the questions. And finally, there's a survey at the end handled by another script. So until now, this is the way that the system worked. Next one, please. And next one, please. So what we wanted to do was, and this is the main point of the presentation, is instead of the Moodle site having its own copy of the quizzes, we wanted the Moodle site to transfer across to the MReader site in order to take the quizzes. So this has several advantages. The main advantage is the security of the quizzes, because if we allow people to download their own copy of the quizzes, there's a chance, which grows as time goes by, that these quizzes will get out. And once the quizzes are out in the open and everyone can find out what the answers are, then the validity of the whole system collapses. So we wanted to force the Moodle readers to switch across, as indicated in this diagram. There's an extra script that's been written that when the students want to take a quiz, they switch across seamlessly to the mreader.org site, where there are some scripts, the same scripts that Tom uses to handle the quiz attempts. Next one, please. And they do very similar jobs. Next one, please. There's an extra script to verify the access, then the main script handles the attempt, and the final script finishes the quiz and passes the score back across to Moodle. Next one, please. And after the score is back in Moodle, then the attempt is treated as before, so the reports and everything work very easily. The security and privacy of the interchange of data was very important, so there are several devices that we use to improve the security. Firstly, we transfer everything using HTTPS, and secondly, we mask the real username behind a unique ID, so that Tom actually never knows the real name or username of the Moodle users who are taking it. And also, each site needs a key in order to access Tom, and finally the results are only sent back to a predefined URL, like that. Okay, that's it. So we can skip these, I think, Tom. Yeah. Okay. Tom would like to make a few more comments.
Yes. So the motivation behind this is that we started with just using it on Moodle, and people had to have their Moodle in their own school in order to then download the quizzes to their local server. But that meant every time someone else created a Moodle site with a plugin in their own environment, they had to download all these quizzes. This is also a maintenance issue, because we add more quizzes, we fix the problems with the questions and answers, then each local person has to download the quiz again. So by having everything from MReader, we just can fix anything on the fly, we can add questions, and everything is instantly available at every other school. By every other school, I mean we have 500 schools around the world with 100,000 students currently using this system, and we have now over 7,000 quizzes on the system, and it's continually growing. And so that's basically the system and why we wanted to try to merge these together to keep it more secure. Any questions? Yes. There's a microphone coming.
Thank you. It sounds very interesting, but I'm talking about it from the perspective of a user, of a student. Of course, you are fully aware of the situation of the updating of the questions and the quizzes, etc. But if we ask the student to move from the Moodle site to the MReader site to the quiz, and then they come back, it's a little bit inconvenient, especially in the situation where the students are in a university, for example, they are taking different courses in the same Moodle system. So if, let's say, course A requires students to move to the MReader and then do the quizzes over there and then come back, and course B also requires...
well, that's completely transparent to the students. They don't know that the quiz came from MReader. To them, they are just using the Moodle module inside Moodle, the plugin inside Moodle. That's all. They don't know that the quiz is actually going outside and pulling it in.
Okay, so that's great.
Right.
So if it is a plug-in, and then that's fine. And then the students are not aware of the updating of the systems or anything like that. They just know that they use a single account, a single ID and password to log in with the Moodle site, and then they do everything on that. Is it the case? Yeah.
Well, there's no even password involved. If they just log into their local Moodle, and it looks like it's there. Okay.
Okay.
So it's completely transparent. But we don't have the quizzes anymore inside that university's Moodle system, okay? The danger is that it's easy. All of the quizzes are actually originally in each Moodle system in a hidden course that students can't see. But it's quite possible that sometimes someone will screw up and they'll make that visible to the students. And then they'll download the quizzes, publish them on the web, and there goes our whole, the validity of our whole system. So it's been a danger. It's going to happen sometime. We're trying to delay that event.
Well, I would say we should not do it, right? So the questions and the answer should be from the MReader. So when the students come in, the system should be able to get the questions from the MReader. Not the questions from MReader should not be embedded directly into the Moodle site. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to come to our presentation tomorrow if you'd like to learn more about the system. I think it's time. Jordan, do you have any more comments? Nope. Okay. Then let's move on to our next presentation. Now, Lulua Bordkosh, we just learned, had emergency surgery last week, so she cannot come. And the next two, Austin Pack and Alex Barrett, also unfortunately canceled, which brings us to our last presenter, Claire Bradin Siskin. Claire? Thank you. Oh, yes, applause. Thank you.
I think we're finally ready to go. A few little problems. The big problem is I left all my adapters in my house in Pittsburgh, which is not a good thing to do. Okay, so I want to talk about an audio a tutorial that I wrote for using LiveCode. Has anybody except for Tom ever heard of LiveCode? Okay. Yeah, it's my favorite software package, and I like to come to TESOL and talk about it. Okay. So basically, and if you know me, you've heard me say this. I think language learners and teachers should be creating their own materials and their own software if they can. Not just consuming them, not just going out and buying them, but actually creating them. Okay. So LiveCode is a software program. It makes it easy for language teachers and actually students as well to create their own call materials. Okay, and teachers like it. If you get them in, I've done a jillion workshops on it. Teachers like it. They can integrate text, pictures, sound, video. They can do interactive exercises. They like the price because it's free. The community edition is free. There's an open source. If you go to livecode.org, you get the open source version. If you go to livecode.com, you get the commercial version. There are not a lot of differences. There are a few extra capabilities that you probably wouldn't need, but that you would get with the commercial version. But everything that I do for teachers, I do with the free version. Okay, it's not really a program, so to speak. It doesn't require coding skills. I myself am not a programmer. I can't do the stuff that Paul can do with Python and stuff like that. But I can do scripting. I can write simple scripts, and language teachers can do that too. Okay, so if you came to Developer Showcase, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I showed a program that I developed, well, actually my team developed. These are some English teachers from Bangladesh, and we used LiveCode to make an Android app, it's called Brimming. Do you know what brimming means? Brimming. The teachers came up with the name, and the idea is overflowing with English, brimming with English. That's the idea behind it. Okay, so anyway, brimming is, if you're an Android user, you can go to the Google Play and download it for free. We don't have as many users as Tom does, but we have quite a few users. Okay, so that's just one example. Here are the students in Dhaka at Daffodil University with their copies of the app. So what I've been trying to do for a number of years is make it easier for teachers to use LiveCode. There is documentation, but it's not, I'll just tell you honestly, the documentation with it is not very good. So I've been sort of trying to develop things to make it easier. So I have a website called LiveCode for Language Learning, and it has links to all kinds of free things that you can download and tutorials and stuff like that. In the app here for TESOL, I have a link to, I think I have a link to the audio tutorial, but that has a link to this, so you can find those pages. Everything is a free open resource. Also, I developed some templates so that basically teachers can download the templates and then they can just adapt them to their needs. And I've had teachers use this for Arabic and Farsi and Spanish and Japanese and all kinds of languages. Okay, so anyway, a couple of years ago at TESOL, I showed the scripts in the Developer Showcase, and basically it's all about copy and paste. A number of things, there are common scripts for the number of things that language teachers might want to do, and so I put them all into one file, and you can go and download that. And the teachers don't really have to understand the scripts. They can just copy and paste the scripts, and they can put them into their own materials. Okay, so now the one thing that has really bedeviled me for many years is how you can play audio and record audio in LiveCode, but it's really, for me at least, maybe if I were a real programmer it would be different, but for me at least it was very difficult to figure out how to do this. And the documentation didn't make any sense to me, and I went to some pretty extreme measures to figure this out. I actually got on a plane and went to a faraway state and took a couple of people out to dinner, and they wrote all the scripts on their dinner napkins, and that's basically the basis of this tutorial. And I've been working on it for a number of years and updating it as the technology changes. So basically I came up with this tutorial, and you can go, the link is in the app, okay, under this presentation. You can download that and if you're interested, and it's totally free and open. So, excuse me, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Okay, so that is the URL, but it's in the app, so maybe if you don't take a picture of it, you can. Okay, so I'm going to go now to the actual tutorial. A little bit clearer now. Okay, now the one thing that I found the most confusing, that confuses everybody, is that you have to tell LiveCode where the audio files are. And you can have them anywhere you want to on the computer, but you have to let LiveCode know where they are. And when you record audio, you also have to tell LiveCode where to put the files that are created. And that was the part that I was not getting, because a lot of people go and they use it and they record audio and then they say, where is it? I can't play it. Where is it? And that's because they have not specified to LiveCode where it is. So what you can do is you can put, you can make a default folder. And what I've done for this tutorial, when you download it, you get a folder. And it has the LiveCode file and it has an external file. So I just tell people, put it on the desktop. That way you can find it. And so, let's see. Well, let's just have you take my word for it. It's there. Okay, I've moved, so you'll need to move that file to the desktop. Okay. So basically the tutorial has a couple of parts. It has the playing audio part and the recording audio part. One thing I didn't mention is that LiveCode is cross-platform. It works on Mac, it works on Windows, it kind of works on Linux, although it's not as robust on Linux. And so basically the commands and the scripts are the same no matter what you're doing. So there are two ways that you can play audio. Okay, one way is you can import the audio clip inside the stack. A stack is like a group of screens. And the other way is you can play it in a player as an external file. So
this is an audio clip played inside the stack.
Can you hear that at all? Let's see.
This is an audio clip played inside the stack.
Okay, so that's there. And basically there are directions for how you do that. You go up to the menu, you choose an option, and it tells you how to import it. You have to know what the name of it is so you can tell the button to play it. Okay, so if you want to play it, if you have now I have an internal audio clip, and if I want to play it, I have to make a little button. And now a button is an area on the screen that does an action. So if I want to play this, I click this.
This is an audio clip played inside the stack.
Okay, so if you want to see the script, okay, that's the script. So basically, if you were a language teacher and you wanted to use that script, all you would have to do is go select that, highlight that, and copy it and paste it into your own program. So basically, all the scripts in there are copyable and pastable. So you don't even have to really understand what they are. You might have to change the name of the audio clip, but that's it. Okay. So now I have a bunch of other subtleties, like sometimes you want students to listen and not do anything else, right? You want them to just stop everything else, okay? So you can do a play and wait.
This is an audio clip played inside the stack.
The script for that is really easy. Wait until the sound is done, okay? So basically, they would just have to copy that script. Now, sometimes you want to allow the students to do other things while they're listening, right? You might want them to drop and drag. You might want them to click. You might want them to do some other action. So if you want them to be able to continue to use the material while they're listening, you can put in a different script.
This is an audio clip played inside the stack.
Notice that time I was able to click at the same time. So that script is called with messages, so they can put in that script. So basically, this is the way the tutorial goes. It goes through a bunch of functions, and they can try out the function by pressing the button, and then they can click and look at what the script is. If they want to use it, they can copy and paste the script. So basically, this one just stops it.
This is an audio clip.
That's the script, play stop. Yeah, on mouse up means that's when you put the mouse down. In mouse up means with the in when you pull the mouse up. I'm not going to make you look at all of these, but I'll just show you what the functions are. Okay, they can loop it, they can play it continuously. They can change the loudness inside there. Also, as I said before, they can have the file be external to the stack, okay? So basically, they can create a player. And I'm not going to go through that. How am I doing on time? Okay, so I'm not going to go through all the options, but you can follow it along. Okay, so basically then you create a player, which is like a container, and then you can point that player at an external file, and then you can play it, and then you can have various other scripts that control it. Okay, so it gives you a lot of very finely grained messages that will actually control that player. So, for example, if you want to start the player, okay.
This is an audio.
You can stop the player. You could restart from 0, etc. You can pause it.
This is an audio.
Etc. Okay, so all of those. You can rewind it to the beginning. You can change the play rate so you can make it go really fast if you want to.
This is an audio clip outside the stack.
To reset it.
This is an audio clip
Okay.
outside the stack.
So you can do all of those things. Okay, you can also hide it and show it if you don't want them to see it at the beginning. You can do that. More information about that. You can also control the height of the player. Let's see. Now, recording audio, it has information about setting up the microphone, which I'm not using here. Now, here again, there's a reminder about you have to tell LiveCode where to put the sound files. One thing that happened as I was updating this is I discovered that, this is kind of bad news, but starting with version 9, LiveCode completely changed the way you record audio. Okay, it used to have totally different scripts, and also right now it doesn't work on Windows. It worked on Windows up through XP and maybe a couple of systems later. It will again in the future. The company keeps saying right now, if you have an older Windows machine, you could get it to work. Okay, so talks about the changes. So I'm using LiveCode 9, which is the latest stable version. So here we are at TESOL. Stop. You can see the script for that. Here we are at TESOL. Yeah, okay. So basically they could just copy and paste those, but the difficult part really is only telling it where to play the file. Okay. That's how to do it in LiveCode 8. You can also set it up so that you can record it, tell it where to go, and then play it in a player. Tom Robb is sitting right beside me. Okay, so then the player pops up and we can play it in the player. Is sitting right beside me. Okay, obviously I'm not getting really good quality, but anyway, there are a lot of different things you can do with it. It has a lot of flexibility. So this has made it easier, I think, for this generation of teachers to actually use the audio. So basically that's it. Download it, play with it. It's a lot of fun.
And answer questions. Any questions?
Yes.
Could you give us an example of some ways in which teachers use this software? Could you give us some examples of how teachers have used this software to create materials? What do they do?
Sometimes they just make very simple, just record your voice compared to a native speaker, play it back. They've done drill and practice exercises. There's one I did a few years ago when it used to be called HyperCard. I did one called Karaoke Conversation. You probably remember that, where it has I had a couple of grad students who recorded a dialogue, and then it's like a role play. They choose who they want to be. There's 3 people in the dialogue, and they record the lines of the third person, and then they play it back, and it's like putting the student inside the software, inside the dialogue. Or they can say something different. And I've seen classes where students have actually created their own dialogues with this. So there are lots of different ways they can use the audio, but I don't know. I taught a call class for many years, and students did a lot of clever things. Like one of them did a lot of audio files in different dialects in Spain, and then she had a map of Spain, and they had to click and see which part of Spain it came from. You know, there are a lot of things they can do, because really it has sort of a database in it, so you can just put pictures in, you can put sounds in, and I've done a lot of drag and drop exercises with it, and those have more complicated scripts, but you can just copy and paste them, so you can do stuff like that. Those are some examples that come to mind. If I did that page of templates so that teachers can get ideas. They're not really complete exercises. They're just like, this is what you could do. Take this, resave it under a different name, change the picture, change the sound, change the language. So just to give people ideas. And they're downloaded pretty frequently. Good question. Yeah, I didn't think I would have time to go into live applications, but there are a lot of things you can do with it. The good question.
All right, well, we can wrap things up now.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Claire, for a very stimulating presentation, and I hope some of the audience will be able to use LiveCode. It seems to be very useful. And I'd like to thank you for coming or listening online to the Developer Showcase, and please consider presenting some of your own material next year. We actually had a little difficulty drumming up enough business this year, so you're quite welcome to share your own ideas in 2020 in Denver. Thank you very much.